Good evening, everyone. It was back in 2019 when I joined Toastmasters. So I've been a member for quite a long time. And recently I completed my first pathway, the pathway for visionary communications. And in this evening's speech, I'd like to kind of reflect on my journey with Toastmasters, share with you what I've learned, what I've experienced, and finally share tips to new members. So what would my advice be back to myself back in 2019 if I was starting out again? So why did I join Toastmasters in 2019? A somewhat unconventional reason. I had an idea for a new type of software, a new type of presentation software, based on a concept called Draw to Win, by the book Draw to Win by Dan Rohn. He had an interesting philosophy that you could present any topic in an interesting and compelling way using just 6 slides. Slides that follow the pattern of the steps that your brain undertakes to interpret what it's seeing. The first slide should be a figure of what it is you're presenting, or who it is that's going to be impacted. Slide 2, what the impact is of what you're presenting. 3 is the where slide, so where does what you're presenting fit with what the audience already knows. 4 is movement, so the steps to get from where you are today to where you want your audience to be. 5 is cause and effect, so kind of what inputs does your audience need to take to enjoy the outputs from the impact slide. And finally, slide 6 is kind of a summary of the first 5 slides. And I was using this technique to put together presentations in my work at the time. And the company I was working for was about to launch a new chatbot solution. So I was asking myself these questions, like, well, who is it for? What's the impact going to be? And I thought, well, what if there was a chatbot that asked me these questions, and just by answering these questions, it would automatically create these 6 slides for me? So I thought, what an absolutely fantastic idea. But before I go and develop this, I'll go and present the idea to a group of people that's interested in giving presentations. So my first Toastmasters speech, my icebreaker speech, was called Presenting the Way You See, or We See. And it went very well. I spent hours and hours preparing it. I'd learned every single word off by heart, and I was only really focusing on the delivery. I had some props. And I got some great feedback, but no one was interested in the idea. but nonetheless, I enjoyed the evening, and I enjoyed the evenings that I attended as a guest. And some of the things I like are the element of surprise. Because when you're deciding to watch a documentary on Netflix or listen to a podcast, you're always deciding what you're going to listen to. But I like the element of surprise on Tuesday evenings when I come here, because I never really have a clue about what's going to be presented. And I enjoy the kind of teaching speeches, kind of saying style. I also very much enjoy the personal speeches that I've seen. In my Toastmasters journey, I've also found that the pathway has been a very good carrot or stick, depending on how you want to see it, to get stuff done. So, for example, another idea I had beyond this presentation solution at the start of COVID, when all physical meetings went online, I thought, well, wouldn't it be nice if you could have a virtual background for your online meetings? There was a bookshelf, but I only have ebooks on my Kindle, so I thought, well, what if I could load my Kindle library somehow onto this bookshelf, and it would create this kind of tapestry as a background for online meetings, showing the books that I'd read to stimulate conversations. And I had the opportunity to present at a club contest, and then also at the area contest. So that was kind of a motivating factor, because I knew the area contest was going to be online, to finish developing this solution, to have the opportunity to present it. Many of you know from my previous speeches that I'm also a keen runner. And I've actually been running every day for about 35 years, and probably for the last 17 years barefoot every day, 7 kilometers per day. And many people think this is almost impossible to do without injury. And I attribute my ability to do this to a number of strange habits that I've developed over the years. And I was thinking about developing an app that would coach other runners to be able to do the same. But then I had an assignment for one of my pathway speeches to produce and publish 10 podcasts and then come back and give a presentation about it. So again, I saw it as an opportunity to take all the ideas I had for this app, all these tips essentially, instead of putting them in an app, to produce 10 short podcast episodes with all of these tips. So now if you look on Spotify, Google, or Apple Podcasts and look for Mindful Running, you'll be able to find these podcasts. I also, something I started at the start, I thought it was great that the speeches that everyone gave were being recorded. That's one of the reasons why I took on the role of VPPR. And my early speeches can be seen as well, actually, because when I first joined Toastmasters, I also created a personal website called gastonhumble.com. So if you're interested to see what my first icebreaker was like, presenting the way you see, it's on that website. So you can take a look. As I said, I had an opportunity to participate in a couple of contests, but when I reflect on what I've really learned and in many ways achieved by being a member of Toastmasters, it's not so much presenting to a group of people, because I was often doing that in my work already. But in my work, I was always talking about something, a technology, for which I was a subject matter expert. I think Toastmasters has really made me more comfortable giving ad hoc speeches, thinking on my feet essentially. And one of the strange skills or habits, I'd be interested to hear from our R counter, how many R's I had, but often I find when I'm standing up and speaking, I can be so aware of myself in the present moment that I often catch myself stopping an R or an or a filler word before it even comes out. And I've also learned to become much more comfortable giving less prepared speeches. Because often when you're giving a speech, if it's not so well prepared, then you can get very nervous. That I practice mindfulness, and I think it's important just to recognize that you can focus on the present moment, feel, for example, the weight under your feet, and just enjoy by telling your message to the audience and by experiencing the feedback from the audience. It's, well, a very nice experience, so I'm enjoying giving this speech here and now as well. If I think about, well, what would my advice be to any Toastmaster, or particularly people starting out with Toastmasters, it would really be to participate as much as possible. We see many new members join and take months to ever give their first icebreaker speech. You're saying that's you, Joanna, but there's some people that have joined, been a member longer than you, who haven't even given their first icebreaker speech yet. And at the end of the day, you learn a lot more by participating and doing and trying to enjoy the feedback you get and trying to, well, consume it. You don't need to accept all the feedback necessarily, but it's always useful and it's worth reflecting on. So participate as much as possible. Also, for the table topics, when there's table topics and I've not given a speech yet, I'm often sitting there hoping I won't get selected. But really, I should also just volunteer more often, because that's where you learn, thinking on your feet. And finally, the thing that I think I'm, well, developing better and better is, as I said earlier, the ability just to be present in the present moment, focus on what you want to say, and you can almost also then just become almost a third-person observer of what you're experiencing in the moment, the message that you want to bring across, enjoying the interactions back from the audience, and just really, well, speaking from your heart. And I'm way over time. That's essentially what I wanted to share about my visionary communications pathway. Thank you.